Welcome to the Pivot PRN podcast. I'm your host, Cecilia Motto.
And I'm your co-host, Connie Betts. We are both nurses who dare to dream beyond the bedside, and we're ready to share our experiences and those of others who have found themselves at a crossroads in their careers.
Every month, we'll bring you authentic conversations filled with practical tips and wisdom to help you better navigate the twists and turns of a scary career transition.
So, if you're ready to make a change, you're in the right place. It's time to take control of your life, PRN style.
Ready for your pivot? Let's do this. Charlene, tell us about yourself, your titles, who you are, and go from there.
Thank you both, Cecilia and Connie, for having me. Really excited to be here on the Pivot PRN podcast. I am Charlene Platon. I currently work at Stanford Health Care as a Director for Ambulatory Nursing. So I've been in healthcare leadership for the last almost 9 years. And then by night, I'm CEO and co-founder of Fifth Window, which is a healthcare wellness community that I've been building with another nurse who is part of the team. And so it's been great to do these different types of opportunities. And I'm excited to share more about that on the podcast.
Yay. So for our listeners, me and Connie know Charlene almost, I think, 10 plus years since we went to nursing school at UC Irvine. So we've known Charlene for a long time. She is a good friend. Yeah, very good friend. And then I know Charlene personally just because we were paired together for a nursing fraternity. And she was, so she was a mentor to me then and has been a mentor to me now. Okay, well, I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for being a guest. And we're really excited to share your story. Our podcast is all about pivoting. So can you describe one pivot in your life? Usually it's career, but can you tell us about a pivoting moment in your
Yeah, it's interesting. I do feel like there have been a lot of pivot moments that I had. And, I didn't share earlier, but I first got into nursing because I was born into a family of nurses or born from a family of nurses. So my mother's an ICU nurse. My twin sister is a nurse. I have several relatives who are in nursing as well. So it was really natural for me to go on this nursing journey. But I really thought that my life was planned out for me. Well, actually, my mom planned out my life for me pretty early on. But then the first pivot I would say that I had was when I was at the bedside at my first inpatient nursing job. I worked at a community hospital in Los Angeles, and I had this opportunity to make my own nursing job. So I became an admission and throughput nurse because one day on the night shift, I noticed that there was a patient in the hallway and they were just there on their own in a gurney. And I said, hey, how's it going? Can I help you? And then they said that a nurse from the ED had just dropped them off there and they were just not sure what was going on. So there were a lot of gaps just in terms of how we did throughput and admissions on the unit. So I proposed this idea to have an admission nurse to my boss, and surprisingly, he let me go through with building this position and building this team. And I think it really was a pivot because it made me realize how much one idea can impact a larger system, impact both patients and nurses. And this was also shocking because at this same hospital, I had a lot of nursing colleagues who would say to me, like, who I knew who were really smart and had really good ideas, but they would say to me like, oh, I don't want to tell anything to management because nothing is ever going to change. And so it really was an interesting difference just with my own experience and what other nurses were telling me. So I think just knowing that nurses have the power to change their environments and the power to use their ideas was something that really set the stage for the rest of my career and other pivots that I had. But that was just I'll just start with my one pivot. There's other ones.
Love that.
That was great. Can tell us about one more pivot and then we'll go deeper into one of your pivots.
Yeah, sure. I'm like, ooh, how many pivots can I share? Because I'm like always pivoting, I feel like. But I'll just say that my second pivot was when I chose to go to graduate school and then I finished it. I was the first family nurse practitioner in my family, actually. And I think actually in my out of all my relatives too. So even though we have a lot of nurses in the family, I think I am the first family nurse practitioner. And it was really hard, guys. F&P school that was a pivot.
It's no
it was
joke.
actually it's actually a pivot that I finished it because there was many times when I didn't want to. But when I graduated, it was interesting because I actually had two opportunities for different careers. One was a clinical path, which is more of the typical path that you see with nurse practitioners. I got accepted, or I got this offer to go into a family nurse practitioner residency, and it was my dream residency. It had the patient population I wanted to take care of. It had the mentorship that I wanted. It had the community I wanted. And it was really an ideal residency. And I was like, wow, this is like the jackpot for people who finish FNP school. And so that was, it was a really cool opportunity. But then I also had a second opportunity that was a completely different path. So it was in leadership. So I somehow was able to have an offer to be in management right after my NP school. So this was a position that was really interesting because it was a combination of both people management and program management. And I learned about leadership during my NP program. We did have a leadership class, and that was really what prompted me to be more interested in leadership. But I never thought it was something that could be an opportunity literally right after finishing grad school. But then at the same time, these two different paths came up, but then I kept being pulled to this leadership path. And it kind of surprised me because I didn't think about this at all really as a legitimate career path after NP school. In fact, I actually remember when I was interviewing for NP school, I shared that the reason why I went into NP school was because I had this really vivid vision of what I wanted to do with my NP degree and a clinical path. Like I knew I wanted to take care of underserved patients and be in this population where I could really make a difference. But then when this leadership opportunity came up, I thought about my career up until this point, and I thought about the fact that I was always interested in leadership committees, volunteering for different types of opportunities that were outside of my clinical roles. And then even that admission nurse opportunity was a really leadership kind of focused position in the end. And so I thought to myself, I actually think I really like leadership. So I ended up going the leadership path, and that was a huge turn. It really turned everything around. And then I haven't looked back ever since. So I've been in leadership since 2016. So it's been almost 9 years, or actually this summer or this fall, it'll be 9 years. So really, really interesting path, but I really have no regrets, and it's shaped my life in so many different ways that I never imagined. So it's been a really, really cool pivot.
That's so cool. I actually have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One question is about the first pivot that you were talking about. And you were talking about how your nursing colleagues had this, like, even though they were really smart, they had this idea of nothing is going to change, even if I go to leadership and tell them, I don't know, there's a problem or whatever. I was just wondering, where do you think your drive comes from with regards to speaking up and making change? Because I feel like it's so easy in healthcare to just accept things for how they are.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's so funny because even before I started that role as an admission nurse, and, when I was a new grad, I remember that there was a moment when I was a bedside nurse that we had equipment that was so outdated. We had beds from the 80s. We had this really archaic scale that was, you literally had a lever and it was like you pushed it down so that you could elevate the patient. But to put the patient on this platform, you had to roll the patient, unroll the thing, put them on this thing. And then it was a really crazy machine. And the beds from the 80s were really, it was wild how difficult it was to use these beds. And I was on a critical care extension unit when I was a newer nurse, and all of our patients had to be weighed every single day. And it was a nightmare because it was always the night shift nurses that had to do it. And then I think in my head, because it's also hard because I'm Filipino American, I grew up in a household where I was literally told by both of my parents to never speak up and never question authority and to always accept things and not make a scene. It was like always, don't rock the boat. That was always my message growing up. But then I think in the bedside, I was so frustrated by the working environment that I just felt like I had to say something because I felt like there was nothing to lose, because the worst I could lose was my position, but then that wouldn't be the worst thing because the environment was not ideal, right? So I was like, actually, I don't feel like I have anything to lose. But then I was also a much younger person at that time. I think sometimes, people could be really, hesitant to say things because they have more that they have at stake. So they might have a family, they might have children, they might have a house, they might have all these assets that they don't want to lose. So at that time I was living with my parents. I didn't have any responsibilities. So I think it was really easy for me to say something. And I actually wrote this for that issue. I actually wrote this really long note, this really long letter. And I addressed it to the leadership of multiple units that had these beds that were unsafe. So I sent this long email to leadership, and it's like, YOLO, And then to
Nothing
my
to
surprise,
lose.
I know, right? Man, when you have nothing to lose, you're just so free. I'm like, wow, you can do anything. But so when I sent that out, to my surprise, they actually responded positively, and they said, you know what? These are really good points, and we're going to change all the beds. So before I left that team, they actually did change all the beds, including all the beds on my unit from the 80s. So that actually was really cool. And I was like, wow, you can actually change stuff. That's cool. But I think that for the other nurses who were hesitant, it really was because they might not have said things in the past, and they actually might have been told from other people to not try. So I think that's been the standard that I've noticed, is that when other people tell you can't do it, we might internalize it ourselves, and then we just don't try. But since I was new on the unit and I was like, well, I have nothing to lose, I just tried it out. But that's also my personality type. I just like to try things for myself before I make the determination if something can or can't be done. So that's also just my personality. I really don't know where else I got this drive, because I really don't know. It's a great question.
No, that's great though. I think that's good advice for someone to just try it, like, despite what everyone's telling you. Like, if it's something that you're passionate about or something that you want to do, then just try it. And if you fail, then at least you tried.
Right, because I'm the kind of person who, if someone's telling me that something's the way it is, I need to confirm that. Like, I don't just take things at face value. I need to either confirm it by doing a ton of research myself, or I just do it myself. I think that's just how I've been for, like, as long as I can remember. My human design profile is 3-5, so I'm an experimenter for those of you who do human design. So
Nice.
maybe that has something to do with it too. But I really think that in healthcare, there's so much that nurses can contribute, and there's so many good ideas. If you're in an environment where you can't share those ideas, that's also a good way to see if that's the right environment for you. I think that to me, it really mattered to be in an environment where I knew that leadership was at least able to listen. I would also understand if things couldn't happen, but if they at least heard me out, then I would feel that at least I tried and brought up the issue. So, I think at the very minimum, I wanted to be heard. So that was just one thing.
Yeah, I mean, and also really great too that whoever was in leadership that read your email at that time was a good leader too, because they also could have just ignored your email.
Yeah.
So I think that's really powerful, because that was also good leadership on their part as well, to take into consideration because you saw what the long-term negative effects would be of keeping these beds around, and it's equally amazing that this leader also could see your point of view and see the long-term effects. And it also just blows my mind that it took this long to change the beds
1980s.
from the
It's
80s.
literally like, imagine the oldest beds you've ever seen, and that's what the beds were.
Yeah, yeah, that is shocking. That I mean, and even a bigger deal for you too, because I think this was also the hospital that your mom and your mom's friends worked at too. So you had all of the titas watching you too.
Oh my gosh, the manager was a tita,
No.
which made it even scarier for me. And also, so she was a Filipino nurse, and that made it really difficult, because I know there's kind of this standard that if you're younger and you're Filipino, you don't question older Filipino staff, right? So that was a little bit scary. But I also knew that I was kind of at the breaking point in terms of whether I wanted to stay in that job. So I also was like, you know what? This could be the tipping point for me, and that's fine. But this manager was also someone, it was interesting because actually this manager was someone who didn't have the best reputation among staff. People thought like, oh, this manager, she's always on our case about this and that, and then now being in leadership, I was like, I totally understand where that manager's coming from, and I feel so bad that I was maybe harsh in the past thinking about how she was leading the team, but now wow, I totally have a lot more understanding now that I've been in leadership for so long. But it did mean a lot that she was able to listen, because I did think that, because with the reputation that she had, I thought that she just wouldn't give me the time of day. So it was really cool that she did.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming from like you were like a new grad too, right? So that's the Pivot PRN podcast is proudly sponsored by Nova Nails, your premier destination for high quality, semi-cured gel nail stickers and essential nail tools. Founded by the inspiring Priscilla, with whom I had the pleasure of meeting at a like-minded collective event, Nova Nails is an empowering brand led by an Asian American female entrepreneur. As a busy mom, I understand the challenges of finding time for self-care. Visiting a nail salon can be difficult, especially when arranging childcare. That's why I love Nova Nails at-home do-it-yourself gel manicure kits. With these products, I can achieve salon-quality nails at a fraction of the cost, allowing me to look and feel professional at networking events. The durability of their products is remarkable. They last up to 3 weeks, empowering me to be my own nail tech. Take advantage of our exclusive discount code PIVOT10 and receive 10% off your first order at nova-nails.co. Elevate your style today and make sure to use this code before it expires. An even bigger. I mean, there's nothing more dangerous than I think someone not afraid to lose their job.
So your second pivot that you were talking about how you had to make the choice between this leadership role and this FNP resident role. That to me, I'm really bad at making decisions. How did you make such a seemingly impossible decision like that? Because people who are listening may also be in a similar situation where they're at a crossroads, where they have to choose between one career path versus another. So, what do you do to make big decisions like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would just say that one thing that really helped me was that, and actually it was more difficult because I had to say yes or no to the residency before I was even interviewed for the leadership role. So if I wasn't,
Wow.
I know if I wasn't accepted for the leadership role, I would have lost 2 opportunities. So it was a complete gamble.
Wow. I can't imagine.
I know. I think this is also where the YOLO could be bad, right? If you take with the high risk comes high reward or high loss, I guess. And I was like, well, this is one of the biggest risks I took because I could have lost everything.
Wow.
But I think what helped me a lot was that I saw the future version of myself, and I was really thinking, okay, where is future Charlene going to be? And then in all the different future versions of myself I saw, they were all in leadership. And I was like, well, if my future self is already in leadership, why don't I just get a jump start? And just why wait? Just go for it. But I'm also someone who I feel like is pretty unconventional, and I don't think that there's one linear path that you can go to in nursing. So I think a lot of people have gone the pretty typical path of you start in med surg, you go to a different unit and inpatient, you go to NP school, you say, it's kind of like this path that I've seen many people follow, and just because they thought that they were supposed to, even if it wasn't the path for them. But I think that because I felt that a lot of my life was already predetermined a lot just by being in nursing. And, since I was born from a family of nurses, there was a really big expectation that I would be a nurse. So in a lot of ways, I felt like I couldn't choose my career when I graduated school. So I think because that part of me was kind of planned out in a sense, or I went that path, I think I wanted to take some more ownership of what I decided at that moment to do. And that's where I was like, okay, I actually can decide what I want to do, and I can decide what step makes the most sense for me. So I was just reflecting on, where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, and that was really helpful. But it can be challenging for sure, though, because if you do have both passions or multiple passions, it's not an easy decision. But I definitely think a lot of it was just my instinct and gut, because I just made it it was just a quick decision I had to make. And I was like, well, I'm just going to try it out. And if I also asked myself, if I don't do this, will I regret it in the future? And then I said, yeah, I would regret it if I didn't try, because if I just accepted that residency position and just didn't try to interview for that other position, I would have always asked myself, who would I be if I did that?
Wow, that is a huge gamble. So much respect.
You know, I didn't know that about you. I'm like, man, mad respect, mad respect.
I probably would have just like taken the job and then still interviewed for the leadership job. And then I would have just been like, just kidding to the other job.
I know. I might have been able to do, I didn't think about that. But oh, you know why? Because the start date for the leadership job would have been in September, but then the start date for this other job would have been much sooner. So that would be a pretty big gap. I mean, I guess you could also just bounce and be like, bye. But then I also felt bad because I
It's a little
know
messed
that
up.
right, because I know that residencies are extremely competitive. Like in
Oh, yeah.
California, at the time, in California, there were only 2 NP residency programs that I could apply to in the state.
Wow.
And this was one of them. And I was like, dang, I'd be really, really mad if I was the person who was coordinating this fellowship and then this fellow was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then they just bounce. And I don't know, I feel like that'd be really sad. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make it clean,
Yeah, yeah. Dang, I didn't even realize there's only 2 residency programs for NPs, and I'm sure not
Yeah.
like every single one of your classmates got them either. So,
No, a lot of
Just
my
thrown in the
classmates,
fire.
yeah, a lot of my classmates had to take jobs elsewhere or just go into jobs without residencies. So this was a really, really lucky offer to get.
mhm.
There's a lot more residencies now, but definitely at that time, back in 2016, there were a lot less. That was another reason why I was really like, man, did I make the right decision? But I just figured, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just apply to the next residency cycle or whatever it is.
Yeah, you figured it out.
Right. Things worked out in the end, so that was good.
Amazing. So you trusted your instinct, your intuition.
Yeah, it really felt like it was the right call at the moment. I don't know, there's some unexplainable feelings that I've had where I know that it's just going to work out, and so far it has. But I think that nurses are really intuitive and healthcare workers in general. So if you all really lean into that intuition and try not to push it out, but just invite it in, I really think that it's a skill set that many people don't have, but that nurses actually are really good at. So just one thing to think about.
Yeah,
Speaking of
that's great.
intuition, let's talk about what you're doing now.
I know. Yeah, speaking of intuition, so actually it's really cool to be interviewed by both of you, and Cecilia actually gifted me my first deck of tarot cards. So one of the things that I'm doing outside of my work as a nurse leader and outside of my work in building my community is I am also a tarot reader. I've been doing tarot readings for the last 3 years, but I've been actually consulting tarot card readings for the last, oh my gosh, 13 years or more probably. So tarot cards have been a huge step of my journey in nursing. And actually, this is a good answer to your previous question too, Connie, about how to make decisions. Tarot cards definitely helped me a lot too.
There we go.
If you have any questions, just ask the cards and let them tell you what to do. Well, I mean, it'll provide some good guidance, but because the tarot cards have always been helpful in my journey. In particular, I have used tarot cards primarily to ask questions about career and life path. That's the top 2 things that I always ask about. I don't ask about relationships. I don't ask about, family. I only ask about career and life path. But it's been really helpful for me for all of those steps of the way. So I think it's a really good way to tap into your intuition that's a little bit more accessible probably and more visual.
So did you start with the tarot reading just because Cecilia got you the deck, or like what like sparked your interest in it?
So because Cecilia gifted me the deck, that was a motivator for me to actually learn to read, or to actually be like, well, I have no excuse now. I have a deck of cards, so I got to use them. And they were also super pretty. I love tarot cards because I'm really visual. I love aesthetics, and man, those cards that you got, Cecilia, they were super pretty. I'm like, man, it'd be a shame to not use these cards. So I have to try it out.
I looked at many, many, many decks before. deciding on that deck. And unfortunately, the best deck that I could find for you was coming all the way from Italy. So that was the deck I had to buy.
Oh my gosh, which is great because a lot of the roots of tarot are from Italy, from France, back in the
I didn't know that.
1400s. Yeah, the first version of like known tarot cards as we know it now came from Italy.
Wow.
So that's really cool that it was shipped all the way from Europe, as it should be, right?
And
Wow.
I didn't tell you it was coming either. I think you like literally just received it in the mail.
I know, it's like, wow, what is this? And it was in a really beautiful bag. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I just had to use it.
Yeah.
But the thing that was interesting about my initial journey with tarot, I didn't take it seriously really until one of the very first tarot readings that I had was back in like 2014. Yeah, 2014 was one of the, there was a time when I would go to the Orange County Fair and go to the, in the fair, I would go to see the tarot readers at the booths. They're like dressed up like gypsies and stuff, which I don't know if they still do that, but there were these tarot readers who were at the OC fair, and just for fun I would go and get a reading from them year after year at the fair. And then around, in 2014 I went to the fair, and it was like a tradition at that point. I had gone a few times already each year before, but then in this year I had talked to the tarot reader, and these are readings that are like $10 for like, I don't know, it was really, really cheap. So I was like, oh, these are not serious because it's just like $10. And I still remember vividly that this tarot reader, I paid her the money and then she drew 3 cards. And then she said to me just point blank, because I didn't even have a question. I was just like, oh yeah, I just want a general reading. And then she said to me point blank, oh, you and your boyfriend are going to break up. And it's like, this is so unserious. I don't believe any of this.
Were you with your boyfriend at the time? Was he with you?
No, he wasn't at the fair.
Okay.
I did not mention that I had a boyfriend or anything, but the person I was with at the time, I didn't see any issues with our relationship. I actually thought we were going to go the distance for at least a while. And then literally a few months after that reading, my boyfriend at the time dumped me. And I was blindsided. I actually did not see it coming at all. But then I didn't even realize until later that that was what the tarot reader said. And I was like, oh my gosh, this person actually told me it was going to happen, and I didn't listen to her.
Oh my gosh.
Although, it's one thing to read tarot for fortune telling and future telling. I don't do that actually in my readings as like a standard or anything like that, but it got me really interested in tarot. And so that's part of the reason why I also wanted to be a reader. But then the first professional reading I had, it was when I was in grad school, and I really, really had a tough time in grad school. And I was like, man, I don't want to be in grad school anymore. And without me saying anything, this professional reader said to me, she asked me, are you in a program right now? And I said, yes. And then she said, don't quit that program. And I was like, dang. It's like, are you sure? Like, maybe gotta reshuffle those cards or something. And then she actually was the one who told me too. She said, like, you're gonna be in a manager position. And that was like right before I graduated NP school and got that job offer. But I didn't know it at the time because this reading was well before I graduated. So that was another thing that was really interesting.
That is really interesting because I think you recommended that reader to me. And I also went to that reader when I was in grad school and asked literally the same question. She would give me the opposite answer and was like,
Be a manager?
no, no, she's like, you don't have to finish your program, basically. Like, you don't have to.
She said that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, more or less. I mean, I kind of answered my own question because we didn't do a card reading. We did a past life regression, and I kind of answered my own question. But
Interesting.
but when I told her what I thought, so in my past life regression not to derail this entire interview.
No, I want to hear.
We love that.
No, so
we love the sidebars.
In my past life reading, in none of my past lives was I working. All the past lives I was reading, I was either like a hermit or just like a stay-at-home mom or like.
Oh my gosh, I love that life. That's amazing. Wow.
or like a priestess or like a witch. Like in all of these past lives, I was alone and like working for myself.
My gosh, that's amazing.
So I told her that, and I said, I think my guides are telling me like I don't have to work or have to go to school. And she was like, yeah, that resonates. So
Wow.
so I love that she told you straight up like don't drop out of your program.
Well, I don't know if I loved it at the time. I was like, but that is wild though that message resonated and then this one did, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
Do you think it also helped you decide to go for the leadership job because she told you that you should be a manager?
I actually completely forgot that she told me that. When I did all that stuff with the leadership interviews, I did not remember at all until it was kind of like the boyfriend thing. I forgot that was said, and then it happened. And then I was like, oh wait, that person said that was going to happen. So this was the same scenario where I completely forgot about it, and then later I was like, oh my gosh, actually she told me about that. So it didn't click until way later, which was even more interesting.
Wow.
The only thing I
That's so
remembered
cool.
at the time was that she said not to quit the program, and I think I was just so focused on that that I forgot about the other parts of the reading. But yeah, I still vividly remember the cards that she pulled. Like I just thought it was so cool. So it's been really awesome to have tarot as part of my journey more, more directly.
Amazing. How did you transition into like starting to do tarot readings yourself?
I would say, part of it was pretty simple because when I first started reading, it was during the time that, the pandemic was happening, and it was a lot of the time I was just staying at home and trying to figure out what to do in my spare time. And so when it was a pandemic, it just kind of worked out that I was just looking for, other tarot readers to work with. And it just so happened that the tarot reader that I was working with, or that I sought readings from, was offering lessons for tarot reading. So and since I had that reader do many different tarot readings for me, I really liked the style that he had, and I really liked the way that he read. So it would be really cool to read from this or to learn from this person. So that was my very first introduction into becoming a reader. And it was a 5-week course. And so it was a really, really nice introduction. And I really liked it. So that just kind of, fueled all the other things that I did, like reading books, taking other courses, and just practicing a lot. And I just figured out how much I really liked it. And that's how it happened, I guess.
That's awesome. And now how does your tarot card business operate now? Do you sell your services, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so I did donation-based readings for a while, and now I do a mix of virtual and in-person readings. So I'll occasionally do readings at a coffee shop that's local to me, and it's been really cool to be able to do in-person readings, but I will still offer virtual readings, through my Calendly, and people could just pay to schedule a reading with me, and that's how I've been doing them. But it's been really informal. So I've been still just testing things out and just kind of seeing what works. And I've been using a lot of it still as just kind of like an extra skill to learn while I'm doing these other things. But I think in the future, it'd be really cool to do it even more seriously and more professionally. But we'll see, because there's a lot of things I want to do.
Yes, you have multiple passions.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
I love that though.
Tell us about your other passion, technology. That's the other big pivot we haven't talked about yet.
Yes.
And I always love hearing the story of like how it started, because it's such a unique, it's not ever something you hear your coworkers ever say they did, or other nurse coworkers. It's not like no one just goes to a like a hackathon when you're a nurse. Like
Coders or programmers.
how did that pivot happen? Because that is a good story, I feel.
Yeah, so it's interesting because ever since I was in the 3rd grade, I had been learning I had been really interested in the internet and tools online, and I would make websites, up until I made websites up until high school, and that was like my
Wow.
first experience with coding because I would code HTML and make all these websites. And I learned how to, use Adobe Photoshop and do graphic design from that. And I don't know, I just thought it was really cool. There was a time that I wanted to be actually like a software programmer or engineer, but then my parents said like, no, don't do that, be a nurse.
Why not? I mean, that's a good job too.
Well, at the time, they were really skeptical of a career in, technology and computers because they didn't know what they didn't know. So they're like, no, like be a nurse because that's a stable job or stable career. I also wanted to be an engineer or an architect, but they said no to that too. So they don't be a nurse. And I was like, okay. But that was my first kind of, dipping my toe into that world. Fast forward actually during grad school. So my very first hackathon was during grad school. So I was one of the first nurses to be in this hackathon that was hosted at UCI. So it was during my time as an NP student, and I forgot oh my gosh, what's the event called? I forgot what it was called, but it was a coding event where it was a healthcare driven hackathon. So nursing students and MD students were paired with coders in the school, software engineering students. And the challenge was to make your own functioning app in a week or something like that.
You got a whole week? That's nice.
Well, it was tiring during grad school. Because this was like during grad school, and then I was like pulling all-nighters for this app. It was crazy. But oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, it was called the Med App Jam. That's what it was called. It was a Med App Jam competition at UCI. So I paired with these software engineering students and made an app with them. And the app was the dementia detective. So it was actually an application to do screening for Alzheimer's.
Oh, cute.
Wow.
I mean, I know.
Cute.
It was cute, and it was actually cool because you could do mini cognitive assessments in the app, and I was like, you could draw the clock and all that. So it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. I love that.
But then obviously, well, not obviously, but we didn't win, but it was okay.
You're telling me
I don't have a
detective didn't win.
I know, right? It's crazy. It was shocking that we didn't win. I still vividly remember the winners of the of the competition. Oh my gosh, the winning app was so cool. And some people suspected cheating was involved, but we won't go there.
But for another podcast.
For another podcast episode, but
so.
Well, I remember that the winning team, it was a team that had a med student paired with software engineers that he already knew in school. But it wasn't fair because he actually was a software engineer before he was a doctor, like a med student. So he knew how to code.
Well, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, and the app that I know is really frustrating. And the app that he made, I know the app that was made was really cool. It was actually like a sound test, so it could detect the amount of decibels that's in the room. You could just test for decibels, and it was awesome. It's like, dang, this app deserves to win. But anyway, that's a long way to say that was my first hackathon that I did. Sorry, incredibly long backstory.
We love the stories, so keep them coming.
That was the origin story. Then fast forward, in 2019 was the first hackathon that I joined that was a nursing-specific hackathon with Johnson & Johnson and SONCIEL, which is the Society of Nurse Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders. So I was a Johnson & Johnson fellow from 2019 to 2022. I was part of their inaugural cohort, and because of that, they were able to tell us about this in-person hackathon that they had. And it was really interesting because this hackathon happened right before COVID. This was in November of 2019. Wow. So it was one of the last in-person things that I did before a lot of things shut down. But it was a really cool in-person hackathon, and it was another introduction into this world. But the J&J Fellowship was also what really pushed me into this world of technology and really using, my ideas to build these different types of tech solutions. So in 2020, that was the very first virtual hackathon that Johnson & Johnson did in collaboration with SONCIEL and Microsoft and DevUp conference. And so my team at the time, we were all in the resiliency and self-care track of this hackathon. This was a COVID-19 virtual hackathon. And our team actually won that challenge and won that track for that competition. So I got redeemed, had my redemption story from that.
The Pivot PRN podcast is brought to you by Like Minded Collective, where friendship comes first and business comes second. Like Minded Collective is a free social networking platform for female entrepreneurs with over 3,000 members across the world and counting.
If you're a female founder of a business who is interested in joining a supportive network of female entrepreneurs, you can join Like Minded Collective's free online community at likemindedcollective.com. And if you live near Orange County, California, you can join Like Minded Collective's in-person networking chapter, Like Minded OC. So, Connie, why do you love LMC?
Okay, so first of all, Inbal Claudio, the founder, is such an amazing connector of women and businesses. The women you meet at LMC are powerhouses, very down to earth, easy to talk to, approachable, and even as a new business owner myself, they meet me where I'm at, and everyone is just so supportive of each other, and the vibes are amazing. And if you are part of Like Minded OC, you have access to a lot of events like wellness walks, coffee and conversations, business events with workshops, hot seat coaching. What about you, Cecilia? What do you like about LMC?
Other than the fact that you're a member there, I love going there because I always leave feeling so good, so refreshed, so excited about my business. The environment is super inclusive to mothers. So we have a special promotion just for our listeners. If you are interested in joining the online community, it is already free. You can already sign up whenever you want just to go to the monthly free meetings. But there is also an elite membership you can upgrade to, which will include additional coaching, intimate strategy circles, and access to their content library. You can use our special discount code PIVOT10 to get 10% off your first monthly membership. Or if you are a local to Orange County, you can use the same discount code PIVOT10 to get 10% off your business and collab event tickets, which is their once a month event, which has the most women and has a really great workshop. Go to likemindedcollective.com and sign up now for a virtual or in-person event. Arc from Dementia Detective.
Yeah. Justice for Dementia Detective. And so that was a catalyst for Fifth Window. So the idea from that hackathon ultimately became Fifth Window, but we continue to pivot with Fifth Window too. So we're now moving away from the app and more into the community build. So we're just still trying to figure out how to promote more of a community while just testing different ideas. So that's where we're at currently, and just trying to see how to make it grow from there.
Yeah. How did you become a fellow? Did you apply for it? How did you hear about it?
Yeah, and what is it?
So this is really cool too. So I learned about the fellowship because I had watched the TEDx talk that was given by Rebecca Love, and she was the first nurse to talk about the concept of nurse-led innovation. So her TEDx talk was all about nursing innovation specifically. And I remember that when I watched that TEDx talk for the first time, I was mind blown because I was like, oh my gosh, this whole time I've been innovating, and I just never acknowledged it that way because, at that time, people didn't really see nurses as innovators or, as idea makers or game changers in that same way. And so that was really eye-opening to me when I saw that TEDx talk. And so after I watched that talk, I had been using LinkedIn as a platform for a long time. And I had I had a profile that I like to use, and I like to connect or follow thought leaders on LinkedIn because there are a lot of really inspiring nurses on LinkedIn. So I followed Rebecca Love's page because she was the person who gave that talk, and I really wanted to learn more about what she was doing and what she was up to. So it was really full circle because I followed her, and one day on her LinkedIn, she posted about the fellowship. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I need to apply to this fellowship. So I applied immediately, not knowing, really not expecting that I would get in. Honestly, I was like, because this is a national fellowship. So I really was like, there's no way I'm going to get this fellowship. But I was like, but I have to apply because I need to try it out. And then a few months later, I was told that I got accepted into the fellowship, and it was really awesome because she became my mentor in the fellowship.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, because she was one of the main facilitators of the fellowship and one of the main mentors. So I got to meet her in person, and she was, oh my gosh, I just saw her recently at the AAACN conference, the American Academy of Ambulatory Care Nurses. I still connect with her all the time, so it's really cool. I don't know what my career would be like if I wasn't a Johnson & Johnson fellow. I always say that it was one of those life-changing moments. So that's another thing that was really life-changing, was to be one of the fellows in that program.
Yeah. So I think your butterfly effect moment was just watching that TEDx video,
Oh
and
my God, right?
window
Wild.
wouldn't be what it is without Rebecca Love, you know?
Right. I know, it's crazy to think about, because if I didn't watch that video, I wouldn't have added her on LinkedIn. I wouldn't have, it's just crazy. I would have never met her. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. And also just, I'm inspired by the book that Connie lent me about worthiness. I've been reading it.
Good. I'm glad you're reading it.
The name of the author. There was this moment in time where you saw the fellowship and you decided, oh, I'm worthy of this fellowship. And so you applied to it. Just like imagine if you didn't think you were worthy of it. Just think of
Yeah.
all the pivots that wouldn't have happened if you didn't think yourself worthy of the pivot to begin with. Like the leadership position, you thought you were worthy of it. So you let go of this highly coveted residency just for the chance
Oh
to
my
like
gosh.
maybe become a leader because you felt worthy of that opportunity. Some people might not have even felt worthy of the leadership opportunity and just like maybe settled.
Right.
It's a really nice way to frame it, because I think I never had thought of it in that way before about worthiness, but it's really interesting that you say that, because, of course, when I was applying for these different opportunities, there was still a pretty big part of myself that said, like, you should do this, or like, you can do this. And it's really interesting because I don't always have that feeling all the time. There were only some really specific times when I felt really strongly that I should apply to something. And some of those times were that management position and that fellowship. Like, that was like, my body was just saying, you need to, like, you have to. And in some ways, I feel like that was like moving towards my life path for whatever reason. But it's really interesting because you can also ignore those signs, right, from your own body and from yourself. And you could be, maybe not, maybe it's not for me. So that's why I think it's so important to lean into your intuition and see what it's really saying with your full body and see what's coming up, because you can be missing so many messages and you might not even know it. But for those, it was one of the most strongest feelings that I had to do something. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love that. Yeah. It's interesting how sometimes you can see an opportunity and you suddenly spring into action, and it's so easy to apply for something, or it's you barely, sometimes applying for things can be hard, but sometimes if you're meant to be in a certain place, that application is so easy, just the right things to say, you're typing at lightning speed, it's so straightforward and easy.
Yeah, because
So
my
you were able.
application was really fast. For that Johnson & Johnson fellowship, I filled out my application super fast, because the timeline was, I only knew about it like towards the end of the timeline to submit. So it was crazy that it worked out. That's why I thought for sure maybe it won't work out.
That's amazing. Just came so easy.
That did, but then there's many other things that did not happen. Many other applications I've applied for that I didn't get. There's many more.
Cecilia, you should pass on that book to Charlene.
Yeah,
Worthy.
that is my plan. Yeah, it's such a good book. It's making me feel so worthy every time I read it.
Worthy by Jamie Kern-Lima.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to read it.
Founder of, why can't I? It Cosmetics.
Are you serious? Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And now
wow.
now she's like a CEO of L'Oreal or something.
My gosh.
She sold her company. I think she's like a billionaire.
Wow. That's inspiring.
Like besties with Oprah.
Yeah, wow. She's besties with Oprah.
That's insane. Wow. Super, super inspiring. Definitely worthy.
So I do want to talk about self-limiting beliefs. And did any of that come up for you in some of your transitions? And just, is there any wisdom you can share about overcoming? I mean, you kind of did already talk about it, the importance of mindset and how to challenge these self-limiting beliefs. And like you mentioned before, like you can inherit these limiting beliefs from even your own family and the people that you look up to. So is there something you'd like to share about that for our listeners?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the times we don't know how many self-limiting beliefs we have until we come across certain situations or certain circumstances or opportunities. And it's really important to have the awareness of those limiting beliefs. And it could even be as simple as if you do see an opportunity and you immediately say like, no, I can't apply to that. It's just kind of diving in deeper and asking yourself why you feel that way and really thinking more about that. I had, even though I've been really fortunate to get a lot of these opportunities that are pretty unconventional in nursing because they're also new. Throughout my whole career, I've always been the first or one of the first people in the job that I was in. So I was the first one to make that admission nurse position. Even back with the, there's just been a lot of firsts in my career. I was one of the first managers in that team that I was in when I got that management job. And now in my director job, I was only the second person to be in this director job. And then I was the first Johnson & Johnson fellow or in that first cohort. So there's been a lot of firsts in my career. And it is part of my personality because I just want to try all these new things all the time. But then one of the downsides, well, I guess maybe not a downside, but one of the challenges with that is that because everything's new, you're like the one who's setting the foundation for all those things. And there's no answers for how you do this or that. So a lot of the time, the self-limiting beliefs for me would show up as, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know the right answer, but there really is no right or wrong. But, I made a lot of mistakes because I'm just paving this path for the first time on my own. So there's a lot of mistakes that I've made. And I think that one thing to know about self-limiting beliefs is that there will always be challenges that come up. And we as nurses can be such perfectionists that we can feel there could be a lot of challenges if we have these setbacks because we work so hard to take care of our patients, to do what we do. And there's a lot of good quality work that we do. And we care a lot. Because we care a lot, it could be really hard to start stuff or to do stuff. And these perfectionist tendencies really impacted my journey too. And it's really at odds with my experimenter self. So that has been really challenging. But I would just say that these challenges are part of the journey, and that's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing wrong with that. It's expected. And that's how we learn and grow, and we set the foundation for others who want to do that. I think that we also don't realize how much we influence other people with these decisions that we make. And by doing what you're doing can impact so many people. I've actually had several people who had come up to me saying, like in my different leadership roles, it's awesome to see you in this position because there's not a lot of people who look like you or me who are in these roles. And that was also one of the motivators for me to be in leadership because that wasn't the case. I didn't see a lot of people who looked like, who looked like us in these positions. But I think that all these decisions that we make really impact the greater whole of what we do. And so I think that limiting beliefs might feel limiting, but if we are able to just take, a few steps forward, like even if they're the tiniest steps possible, it's better than not moving at all. It's like one of the things that I've really learned. So even with all these beliefs and all these challenges, it's really important to still try and move forward and do things. And we could always pivot, right? If we want to. So that's something I just wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, because you did mention about like learning through mistakes, because your human design profile is the experimenter. Is there a particular mantra that helped you on this sort of different life that you've taken?
Yeah, so kind of similar to what I had mentioned about continuing to move. So I was one of the people who was really late to watching Game of Thrones. I watched it like after I binge watched the show up until the last season came out, and I finished everything up until the last season came out. So I was able to watch that in time. But anyway, when I was binge watching Game of Thrones, there was one episode where Sansa Stark says to Lord Baelish that she actually said, and I don't know why this stuck in my head so much, but she said to him, I'm a slow learner. It's true, but I learn. And I was like, dang, that is so profound. And I was like, wow. So she was such a huge inspiration to me, even as a fictional character. But I thought that it was such a powerful line of wisdom. And I keep on thinking about that every time I make mistakes or every time I have setbacks. And I was like, you know what? Like, it doesn't matter how fast I go. It's just more important that I go forward and that that I try and I still learn. And in the end, I'll have no regrets because I tried it out anyway. So I always think of Sansa and that wisdom that she dropped in Game of Thrones.
I love that
Such
scene in Game
wisdom.
of Thrones. Like, yeah, that was like, oh, it was so good. That episode, that scene was so good. Because
Chef's
then
kiss, that whole episode.
the whole episode, she exposed the little finger, and he got got, and it was so satisfying.
I
So
think
satisfying.
probably one of the most satisfying parts of the show. And I remember everyone was like, "Oh, Sansa's not that great of a character or whatever," but I'm like, man, she's a pretty great character.
Yeah, she made a lot of mistakes, and she was quite like pawn in other men's games, and
Right.
then
Hmm.
she ended up a queen, like a literal queen in the north at the end. So that was great.
Literally went on that chessboard from a pawn to a queen.
That's right. Yeah. So on that note, any other parting words of advice before we go into some rapid fire questions?
Fire.
I would just say that, one of the most challenging things for nurses that I have seen is just the ability for us to be more authentically ourselves in our profession, no matter what that profession is. And one of the pivots we have with Fifth Window right now is really shifting to this community where, our tagline now is Nurse Your Joy. And we really want healthcare workers and nurses to be able to be in a space where they could be their authentic selves and really connect with others and connect with other parts of their identity outside of nursing so that they can really be their authentic selves and really allow themselves to explore those different sides of them. I would just say that if anyone's interested in learning more about us or joining some of our events or our community, they could always learn more and visit our website. And our website's www.fifthwindow.com or FIFTHwindow.com. So that is something that we're always looking to grow. And if anyone wants to have any tarot readings done, I also offer those virtually if anyone's interested. And it's on my Instagram link, but that has my Calendly schedule.
Yeah, definitely get a reading by Charlene. They're so good, so amazing, and
Yes.
you can really tell that she's invested a lot of time into being the best
Yes.
reader she can be.
You're a professional.
That's so sweet.
I've had a couple from you, so I can attest to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Okay, so we'll go into some rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire questions.
Okay, Charlene, coffee or
Coffee, of course.
silly question?
Silly question. Next question.
I mean, we're nurses. We need coffee. Yay.
Your past self in one word.
I would say limited because of those limiting beliefs, but just in general, I really felt restricted just because I felt like I wasn't who I was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Open because I just want to do everything, explore everything, and learn everything.
Great answer.
Ooh.
Your future self.
I'd say limitless because I really think that there is no limit to what you can do in this lifetime. And there's so much that you can do when you open yourself up to all the opportunities. And there's so many things that you could do out there that's around you. So limitless for sure.
Yeah.
And one word that keeps you going.
Gratitude. And I really think without gratitude, I wouldn't be where I am today because it really gives you perspective for your journey and where you have been and where you are now. So I'm extremely grateful for every step of my journey.
Yeah, that's a good.
Such great answers.
Yeah. One word you want to be remembered by.
I would say magical because I really think that there's so much magic to who we are as people, including us as nurses, even with our science brains. I think that we're all magical beings, and that's how I want to be remembered by.
I guess, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I am mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. So if you look at my LinkedIn page, it's my name, Charlene Platon. And then our business Instagram, it's at Fifth Window Inc. So Fifth Window INC. And then I have my personal Instagram, Charlene Platon, where you could check out the link in my bio if you want a virtual tarot reading. But there's also other links on our Instagram for Fifth Window and everything like that. So hope to find me.
Should.
Well, thank you so much, Charlene Platon, CEO, co-founder of Fifth Window, and Director of Ambulatory Services at Stanford. Thank you so much. But
And
yeah,
tarot reader
tarot
extraordinaire.
reader.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking with us. I know you do a lot of podcast episodes, so I feel very honored that you found the time to do this with us. And we're very, very proud of you and
Your
eager to
accomplishment.
see what the
Thank
future
you.
will be like for you. So you will
So
do really
inspiring.
big things. Yeah.
You two are so sweet. Thank you for having me. And it was such a fun conversation. Thanks for the extra time, because I know I do record podcast episode a lot, but I also like to go on tangents a lot. So that's, I'm not usually the
We
one
love
who's being
that.
interviewed. Well, it's kind of like 50-50, but I love it when I get could talk about all these things. So thank you for the opportunity. It was such an honor and so much fun. So thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Pivot PRN podcast. We hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your own pivot journey.
Remember, every big change starts with a single step, and we're here to support you the whole way. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready for a change.
And if you're looking for more insights, tips, or community, follow us on Instagram at Pivot PRN Podcast.
Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, and remember, it's never too late to pivot.